Hey guys, Ben here, and welcome back to another video on Star Wars. So yes guys, Star Wars is finally here. So this is my review on episode 8, also known as The Last Jedi, and oh my god, was it a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would say it's probably my favourite Star Wars film. I've only just watched it, so I will need some time to process, but for now, I'm saying this is my favourite Star Wars after Empire Strikes Back. I think this film was amazing. There were so many great aspects to it, like the story was really compelling, the direction of the film, Rian Johnson did a smashing job, everything. Like, I will be talking about all the plot details, so this is going to be spoilery, so click off now if you don't want to be spoiled if you haven't watched it yet, but you should really watch it by now because it's been out for a few days. And yes, so I'm 100% going to be going back and watching this at least one more time. I will definitely try and go twice, but it was a blast of a ride. So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that happened, and although I'm not going to cover everything because not everything's super important, but I'm going to be covering the main points that I really want to cover, and I know I'm going to miss out some stuff obviously because I've only seen it once, and maybe once I see it again I will do separate videos regarding some specific stuff that happens. But I do intend on doing a video on the ending scene and also about maybe some other theories about what comes next after Star Wars The Last Jedi. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of my Star Wars videos, because episode 9 is going to be coming out in 2 years. We've got the Han Solo film next year, and also we've got the Obi-Wan film, which I'm super hyped for, and we got the new trilogy and the TV show. We've got so much Star Wars stuff, so please subscribe. This was probably my favourite scene in the whole film. Master Yoda is back. I literally screamed in the cinema. I'm not even exaggerating, I screamed, and everyone in the cinema was shocked. And I would say this is probably one of the best screenings I've ever been to, because everyone at the jokes, everyone was laughing at these epic scenes, everyone was so enticed, and everyone was getting super excited when these massive things happened. So Master Yoda returns as a Force Ghost, which we last saw, I'm pretty sure was in Return of the Jedi, yeah, when all of the Force Ghosts were there. But obviously this is not the CGI version that we saw during the prequels, but we saw the puppet Yoda, and that was brilliant. I loved how they brought him back, and his scenes were excellent, and he teaches Luke that the knowledge of the Force is within them. It's not within those books, the journals of the wills. I'm pretty sure that's what they were, and also that references to like the grey Jedi and how the Jedi has to change, and Luke's sort of all about that in this film, and I'll talk more about that later. But Yoda, when he was actually in exile, he was very similar to how Luke is in present day, because they used to be all serious about the Force, and in their old age and in their exile they've turned a bit silly, and there's a lot of parallels between their storylines, and I'll talk more about the references to past Star Wars films in a few minutes. But I have to say, this was probably the most satisfying scene in all of the Star Wars films. I was just so happy when I saw this, and I can't wait to rewatch it and just enjoy this. So the way they actually shot all of the lightsaber scenes were brilliant, and they were a much big improvement on the prequels and even the originals, and they used a lot of master shots, so you could see it was really, they didn't try to cut too much. Rian Johnson did a great job with that, using the very continuous shots. It was a bit more Hitchcocky, and you can also tell that he's been influenced by Alfred Hitchcock in a lot of the lighting, but also mainly at the scene where Rey or Luke, I'm not sure who it was, looks down and they do the vertigo thing in Vertigo, and that was a brilliant reference to Vertigo, and I'm so happy because there was a lot of similarities. So he's obviously taken influence by a lot of these great filmmakers in the past. So the way it was done, all these lightsaber fights were beautiful, much better than any other lightsaber fights in the past. And also in that Kylo Ren versus Luke scene, which I'll expand on in a few minutes, but it was like two forces, the light and darkness, opposing each other, and you could see their full body shots. You could see the blue lightsaber, you could see the red lightsaber, you could literally split the cinema screen down. You'll see the dark side and you'll see the light, and I think the imagery that they used there was absolutely brilliant. So Luke Skywalker at the end, it was a great scene, but it was very sad. But I don't think he's actually dead. I think there's going to be a twist to it because Luke has become part of the Force. Obviously, he probably will pop up in the next film as a Force ghost or something else, because that's not the typical Jedi death, although it was very similar to how Yoda actually passed away, how he disappeared, and similar to Obi-Wan, how they all become Force ghosts, but he just used up all of his power in order to help the rebels, and he literally projected his image, and his hair actually looks really different, and he's got his original haircut from Return of the Jedi. They try to make a lot of parallels there, I could see that, and I don't actually think he's dead, but he's definitely at peace wherever he is, and I think he's like part of the main centrifuge of the Force, if you understand what I'm getting at. I could be wrong here, but it feels like he's empowering all these people, all these Force users throughout the galaxy. So later on, the kid at the end with the Force, that was crazy. I was like, oh my god. And you can see the flying light, and that's like a bit of imagery that could say, yes, light is spread out throughout the whole galaxy. Now that Luke has actually helped the rebels actually escape, and they've got a chance. And one theory of mine is that he could be one of Luke's ex-Padawans in the past. Although he seems very young, it seems to be like it wasn't too long ago when Kylo Ren turned to the dark side, and he could potentially have been a really young Padawan. Or this means that there's Force users everywhere in the galaxy, which is hinted at thoroughly throughout the film, and that they just needed the spark to unite and actually unite together and become what they were supposed to be, all of these Jedi Knights. So hopefully in episode 9 we get them all having lightsabers. Like, that would be cool. So hopefully we get a few more lightsaber fights. I thought the ones in this film were extraordinary, and I thought they were brilliant. So I will talk probably more about the Luke Skywalker ending in the next few days when I actually make the video. So moving on, Luke Skywalker and his alternate flashback scenes with the green lightsaber. And first off, seeing the green lightsaber was just so satisfying. But apart from that, I would say these scenes were actually really cool, and how they had these different alternate views of what happened, and how Luke lied, and how he was actually going to strike down Kylo Ren, but at that instant he knew he was doing something wrong, so he retracted from that, and that's when Kylo turned to the dark side, because he thought Luke was going to kill him. And obviously Luke was initially, but then he took that back, but Kylo obviously didn't listen. So Luke versus Kylo Ren, like I said earlier, it was stunning. One of my favourite scenes in this whole film, as well as the Master Yoda scene with the Force projection, and the realization of that, I was like, holy shit, what just happened? I was in shock, and I thought it was an absolutely brilliant way of actually ending near to the film. And Luke versus Kylo Ren, the sheer emotion that went into that scene, and it was really great. I really enjoyed everything to do with that, so you need to watch that scene over and over once it comes out on DVD, or just go back to the cinema to watch those scenes, because those scenes were shot spectacularly. I think Rian Johnson especially did a great job with the lightsaber scene. So Snoke, as you guys can tell, he's a massive red herring, so that Kylo can become who he was, and I think this is a very good move from the team behind Star Wars and from Rian Johnson, because, you know, Snoke was introduced to be this all-powerful being like the Emperor, and you can see that they're very similar, like how Snoke actually showed Rey of the Rebels and how they were going to be defeated. That's what the Emperor did to Luke in Return of the Jedi, and I feel like with these similarities, I think it was great that they actually ended up killing him off, and it was quite poetic that Kylo actually killed his master, as that's literally what Darth Vader did in the end in Return of the Jedi. But I think it was a great idea that they actually killed off Snoke, because they need Kylo to become this person who's going to be that all-powerful dark side user and not be in control, because it did feel a bit weird in The Force Awakens with Kylo not being the main villain. It was like Snoke being the overarching villain, but now Kylo is the full-on villain, and I was very happy with how they actually did that, and I thought the story to do with that was really interesting. So Rey and Kylo and their connection, it was something very new. I think it was kind of cool. Maybe they overdid it a tiny bit, but apart from that, the strong connection, and it's an example of how the Force, maybe the users can actually travel through the Force plane, and we got an example of that when the rain actually came onto Kylo from where Rey actually was, and it's a literal connection, so it's a new thing, and I'm open to more stuff like this. I thought it was quite interesting, and I thought it was shot very well, and the connection, especially the sound editing, was brilliant in the scene. So Rey and Kylo Ren versus the Praetorian Guards and Snoke. One of my favourite lightsaber duels of all time. I love lightsaber duels, just saying, if you haven't noticed already. But this fight scene was brilliant, and how Snoke at the start of it thought he was in control, and then Kylo betrays him, he stabs him, and he chops him in half, like Obi-Wan did to Darth Maul, and I thought that was kind of poetic. How you kill this all-powerful being, and you just chop it in half. That's as easy as it is. He thinks he's that powerful, but he's wrong. And the fight scene was brilliant with Rey and Kylo Ren actually teaming up, and you could see by the end of the scene, after the excellent choreograph was done, after they all died, and Rey versus Kylo Ren at the end was amazing. So for a moment we're thinking, oh, is Kylo going to turn to the good side? And is Rey going to actually bring him to the good side? So obviously it was quite obvious that he wasn't, but the way Adam Driver actually portrayed the character, it was kind of confusing, and I thought it was great how he actually did this. But I'll talk more about the characters later. But talking more about the influences, so Empire Strikes Back obviously being the second film in the original saga, and this being the second film in the new saga, but still following the Skywalkers. And I think it was really great how they didn't do a total Force Awakens, you know, rehashing the original story. And there was just some nice references with the Guerrilla Walkers being a new version of the ones actually used in Empire Strikes Back, and the trench scene, which was in Empire Strikes Back, and with them actually raiding the base, that was very similar. So there's a lot of similarities, and I thought that was just some nice callbacks. I liked it how they didn't totally retcon it, and it was a whole new story. It's a whole new take on Star Wars, and I thought it was brilliant the way they actually portrayed it in the end. So Rey's parents, you know, they were a big theory, and it's revealed in the actual film that it's unimportant. You know, not repeating the past with what they did with Luke, I think is a great idea, and how they were nothing. They just sold Rey, and Rey's just a Force sensitive user, and it's not like anything important. She doesn't relate back to Obi-Wan Kenobi, she doesn't relate to Luke Skywalker, like that kid at the end. She's just someone with the Force, and I thought it was really great how they actually didn't, you know, make too big of a fuss of Rey's parents, because that was a big thing in the original saga. It was great there, but I don't think they should totally redo that, and I think it was good. So there was some new animals, the Porgs. They were funny, I'll admit it. I really did laugh at the Chewbacca scenes with them. Obviously they weren't that necessary, they were used for comedy purposes, and I thought they were decent. You know, I don't have a problem with them. I don't think they were amazing or anything. I thought the Snow Foxes, whatever they're called, were a lot better. I thought they were really interesting, and the design was great for them. And yeah, so the Jedi, and how Luke tells us that the Jedi aren't always right, and he took a more Qui-Gon Jinn perspective on this, so he was leaning more to the grey Jedi area that's in the Star Wars lore, and I thought it was really great how he actually tells us that, you know, the Jedi aren't all good, and with Yoda actually returning as a Force ghost, he obviously burnt down the original Jedi books, and it was just, you know, kind of good how they're actually going to move forward, and we've got a rough idea of what's going to be happening. And I thought it was just a really good way of actually doing it, and I thought Mark Hamill was brilliant, but I'll talk more about that later. The Force and the new stuff. So Leia, it's revealed she's Force sensitive and she can fly, so that's a new power that we've actually experienced, but I'll talk more about Leia in a minute. And finally, the colours and cinematography and the CGI. The CGI was epic throughout. I thought it was great. You know, there was some scenes that weren't too good with Finn and Rose, but I don't have a problem with that. I thought it didn't take anything away from the actual storyline. So the pan shots around the characters, you know, the shots behind Leia were actually brilliant, and I thought the way that Rian Johnson actually instructed these cameras to move was brilliant. There was a lot of tracking shots, there was a lot of wide shots, and I thought the way the shots were actually shot throughout the island were especially good. There was shots over the top of the island, you know, surfacing around the island, and also in the last lightsaber fight scene between Kylo Ren and Luke, it was especially good, the cinematography there, how it actually just panned around them really slowly. And like I said before, that's a very Hitchcock thing to do, and he definitely took some influence on that, and I thought Rian Johnson did an amazing job, much better than J.J. Abrams. I rate Rian Johnson from the past, and I think he did a brilliant job bringing this, making a really, really great film, and a really, really great Star Wars film. So if you understand what I'm getting at, it was a well-made film. It was really, really well done. So moving on to the characters, and this is one of the last things I actually wanted to touch upon. So Kylo Ren improved like hell. I wasn't the biggest fan of him in The Force Awakens, and Luke has changed, and how he's become is literally like the coolest thing, and I think Luke and Mark Hamill were just brilliant. I thought the way they actually portrayed his character, the script writing, although a bit shaky at some points with the humor, I thought throughout he was probably the standout of the whole film. And also there was some other great characters. So Snoke, I thought it was great how he wasn't important like we were actually led to believe. He was a massive red herring, and he was just there to actually make Kylo become someone else, to betray his master and actually take control and become this actual massive evil figure, and I thought it was really good. And Rey, although she didn't get too much time as the main character in this story, I thought it was good how they actually, you know, spread out the screen time between all these characters. And Rey has improved. Although I'm not the biggest Daisy Ridley fan, I thought she was great in this film, and her training was especially good. I love those scenes, how she was actually progressing, learning the ways of the Force. So Finn, Poe and Rose, I thought they were good. I thought it was good how they squashed the idea of Poe actually being this all-knowing rebel guy, and how they actually crushed him down was great. And the new character, I'm not 100% on her name, but the woman with purple hair who has a connection to Leia, she was especially good. And Finn, I was a big fan of him in The Force Awakens, and I thought he was a big improvement on his original character, so I really enjoyed him. I thought Rose, the actress, wasn't too good, but I thought her character was kind of cool, and although I didn't really connect with their kiss at the end, and I don't think Finn did either, I thought she was a decent character. I didn't have anything wrong with her. I look forward to what she's got in the future, but yes, it was sad watching it with Carrie Fisher not being around anymore, so I'm interested in how they're actually going to explain her being gone in episode 9, or are they going to cast someone that looks really similar? I don't know, but I like seeing her daughter in the film. That was really cool, seeing her as like one of the officers of the rebels, and that was brilliant. When she got shot out, I was shocked. The whole cinema was shocked. And when she came back, I was like, holy shit, she's about to use her Force powers, because in the lore, she actually becomes a Jedi at one point, and we know we've had hints of her being Force sensitive in like Return of the Jedi when she actually detected Luke, and it was just great seeing this new version of Leia. She has the Force and she could be a Jedi. So probably my one gripe of this whole film was that I wasn't a fan of the story with Rose and Finn, how they went to that weird planet, I'm not sure of the name, with it kind of just looking like a place on Earth. It was really relatable, I get that, but I just didn't really connect with it. I don't think it was necessary, but obviously it was necessary to actually reel in that kid, so it wasn't just a random kid at the end, and how he actually got the rebel ring, and obviously that needed to happen in order for the ending scene to happen. So I thought that was good how they connected that, and how we found out he was Force sensitive. But apart from that, the storyline there was pretty iffy, and although a good thing came out of that, DJ was good, so that's his character name, and Del Toro's portrayal of the character was really great. I really enjoyed him. He's a great actor. And yeah, so that's my review on The Last Jedi. So overall, I would give it an A star. I thought it was a brilliant film. The characters were amazing. The storyline was really compelling, and the ending, Master Yoda coming back, and the cinematography, and how Rian Johnson actually portrayed this universe in a different way, having influences from great films in the past such as Vertigo. I thought it was just brilliant how it actually in the end came together. I thought it was a masterpiece of film. So anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Strong, it doesn't make us weak. Tongue tied to service like Shari.